It may seem strange that I am here representing the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society, but giving a presentation on Michigan's future. Let me explain. I believe that the primary purposes of an historical society is to 1. Collect and maintain artifacts and information relative to its mission. Secondly, it must demonstrate the collection's relevance historically and significance in current affairs. The Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society does this through mainstreaming, which is using contemporary public interests to embed our historic message. We do this through relevance, which is using lessons from our past to help understand what is happening currently. We do this through quality. Our message must meet the standards of users' expectation. With today's public hooked on computer-generated graphics, Twitter tweets, and YouTube videos, there is a high expectation of sound bites and mind-capturing images. And finally, the lifestyles timeline drives our content. Before describing the lifestyles timeline, let me pass a few recent headlines by you. Pure Michigan advertising campaign works wonders. Tens of thousands of college-educated youth leave Michigan for cooler destinations. Is happiness still that new car smell? Oakland County Board of Commissioners deadlocked on countywide public transit. Many of today's teens aren't in a rush to get their driver's licenses. Can you spot a common theme among these apples and oranges? I can. It's lifestyles, and that is what I am here to talk about today, the lifestyles of the area's past and the implications on our future. We have studied the people who have lived in the Lakes area and found them to fit into one of these 4 categories. When describing items in our collection, we show how those items are examples of the people who use them. The timeline also permits us to explain the transition from one lifestyle to another. In some cases, that transition was very contentious. For example, the French and Indian War was fought over the transition from the Native Americans and their French allies to the English farmers. At the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society, we use this lifestyles timeline to drive our message. The artifacts displayed in our museum are cataloged as examples of the lifestyle they represent. When presenting to visitors, particularly the second graders from the West Bloomfield School District who every year tour Apple Island on Orchard Lake, we ask 4 overarching questions about each of the 4 lifestyles. Why did they come here? What facilitated their arrival? What did they need to sustain life? And what does that tell us about our future? For the American Indian, this was a really cool place to live. Over 20% of West Bloomfield Township's surface is water. The junction of today's Orchard Lake Road and Pontiac Trail represents the watershed of 3 rivers, the Huron, Rouge, and Clinton. For Native Americans traveling by canoe and holding islands as very sacred and special places, this was a natural collecting point. John Farmer's 1826 map of Oakland County illustrates the trails used by Native Americans. The Saginaw Trail was a major route leading to today's city of Pontiac, while what we call Pontiac Trail was a connector from the Port Huron area to today's Ann Arbor. Keep that in mind as we look at the remaining slides in this presentation. Now, getting back to our lifestyles timeline, our second graders touring Apple Island learned that for Native Americans, canoes and walking were the primary means of transportation. The wigwam and longhouse was the primary form of shelter. Stone tools were the means of transforming natural elements until the French arrived, and the French did arrive, quickly followed by the English. The lifestyles transition occurred when the European farmers displaced the Native Americans. When the state of New York decided to build the Erie Canal, they did not have as one of their objectives to pack up residents of New York and move them to Michigan. But that is exactly what happened. It is for this reason that we have cities in Michigan named after those in New York, Troy, Rochester, and Utica, for example. So, the farmers, what attracted them here? Water, farmland, less dense population. What facilitated their arrival? Certainly the British defeat of the French in the French and Indian War, and the Erie Canal. Lessons learned, transportation, and lifestyle drives development. It was the arriving European farmers that introduced the Native Americans to metal cutting tools and silver trade items. The photo on the right illustrates an early form of multimodal transportation. The horse-drawn wagon was utilized to bring freight from the Woodward Avenue train station in Pontiac, and then transported by scow across Orchard Lake to the settlement on Apple Island. The next transition occurred when farmland around the lakes was bought up for resorts, hotels, and campgrounds for vacationers. This 1896 map of West Bloomfield Township locates many of the establishments built to cater to the increasing volume of vacationers. At the same time, our neighbors in Bloomfield Township found their farms were being bought to build private estates. In both townships, the mode of travel was the interurban trolley, heavy rail along the Pontiac and Saginaw trails, and eventually the automobile. The photo on the left shows well-dressed ladies exiting the interurban trolley at what is now called Seminary Road, probably heading to the Sunday afternoon dress parade at the Michigan Military Academy. The photo on the right is an interesting example of the horse-drawn carriage giving way to the approaching automobile on Woodward Avenue, as it is known today. The top left photo shows vacationers enjoying a tour of Orchard Lake aboard the steamboat Dell. The top right photo shows the Campbell family on Apple Island enjoying one of their favorite pastimes, sailing with friends. Although the David Ward family had a large estate home on the shore of Orchard Lake, the bottom right photo shows the Willis Ward electric generating facility on Apple Island for his 2-story brick summer house. So, vacationers and estate builders. What attracted them here? Again, the water and separation from dense population. What facilitated their arrival? Heavy rail, interurban trolley, automobile. Lessons learned, transportation, and lifestyle drives development. We now have another example of a contentious transition, as the encroaching vacationers were conflicting with the permanent residents we now call suburbanite. In fact, as you can see from General Strong's quote, this conflict between vacationers and residents was the principal reason for the cities of Orchard Lake, Sylvan Lake, and Keego Harbor, in that order, to break from the charter township of West Bloomfield and form their own city government. Quoting from General Strong, people swarmed over private property in droves, putting on bathing suits in their cars for swims in the lake, picnicking on private lawns. What a mess. As a matter of fact, the principal purpose in forming the village of Orchard Lake was to prevent trespass and to police our roads, all of which were gravel, most in poor condition. Suburbanites. What attracted them here? The drivable suburban urbanism lifestyle, drive until you qualify as it was called, the all-sports lake, separation from dense population. What facilitated their arrival? The development of the cul-de-sac neighborhoods, extensive federal subsidy of the federal freeway system, and the ability to commute to work. Lessons learned, transportation, and lifestyle drives development. The Charlie's Crab restaurant sign from our museum's collection is an excellent example of the dying vacation era. When the restaurant, formerly known as the Rotunda Inn, burned to the ground, the area had been completely converted to residential suburbanites. The local residents would not permit the restaurant to be rebuilt with its related traffic, noise, and liquor license. The razing of the restaurant represented the final transition from vacationers to suburbanites. Today, suburbanites visit the uninhabited Apple Island on pontoon boats owned by the school district. Now, until the arrival of the French, I would imagine that the Native Americans had no reason to believe there would be any other residents of our area other than themselves. Until vacation resorts started buying up farmland, I would imagine the farmers probably thought their lifestyle would last indefinitely. Can we not presume, then, that there may be another lifestyle that takes over West Bloomfield and Bloomfield Townships? If so, what would that be? Well, you'll have to wait for part 2 of this series to learn what might be in store for us for the future.